Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Do You Agree, the sports talk show. Today's Season 4, Episode 3 for you guys. As always, I'm your host, Collin Spike, alongside my friend and co-host, Jason Hoffman. Jace, one of the best parts of my week is to start the week off early with you on camera.
Oh, 100%. I mean, thinking back and, everybody starts off their week Monday, Tuesday, usually in a, luggish and dreary attitude. But when you got this, sitting next to you, chopping it up, talking sports, and giving you guys the latest on the sports world, I mean, they're nothing better. Nothing better.
And talking latest, late last week, Adam Schefter broke the news of a very early blockbuster trade. Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford switching teams. Matthew Stafford now part of the Los Angeles Rams organization. Jared Goff heading to Detroit with the Lions. And to break down the whole trade, the Rams get Matthew Stafford. Lions get Jared Goff, 2 future first-round picks in 2022 and 2023, as well as a third-round pick.
Absolutely. And this was the blockbuster trade of the offseason thus far. I know we have one more game yet to go in this 2020 season, and what a game that will be. Super Bowl 55. But, this trade shook up the football world pretty well.
The Rams, they do not have a first-round pick until 2024 now that they got rid of their 2 next-year first-round picks. But you kind of had the question, do they get it back in Matthew Stafford? Matthew Stafford, among quarterbacks at 31 years old, he is first in completions, second in yards, and third in touchdowns. And he's the fastest quarterback ever to throw for 10,000 yards, 20,000 yards, 30,000 yards, and now 40,000 yards. So it brings in the question, who won this trade? Do the Rams win it with a better quarterback than Jared Goff now, or do the Lions win it with a good handful of picks for the future, as well as a younger quarterback? So, Jace?
So there's a lot of ways you can look at this. I took some time to kind of debrief and digest all of these moving pieces here within this trade, but I think it's pretty clear-cut in my opinion. I think the Detroit Lions made out on the better end of the stick with this trade. Look, this is the bottom line. The way the Rams position themselves with making this deal, it's a must-win. It's a must-win Super Bowl situation in the next 2 to 3 years. They don't have a first-round draft pick until the year 2024. You said that yourself. I mean, yes, the pieces are there. Stafford is, as you said, clearly, as of right now, the superior quarterback over Jared Goff.
Right.
I don't think anybody's arguing that per se. But the position they put themselves in, it's a high pressure. Like, you gave up so many assets that you owned as an organization in order to make this deal happen. And I mean, look, I'm not doubting Sean McVay or that Rams defense or that supporting cast. Sean McVay, for as young as he is, has proven himself to be one of the elite coaches in the National Football League. I mean, look, he's put up a starting record as a head coach of 43-21 in his career thus far. That is astounding. That is phenomenal. And he has such a ability to lead and make guys want to follow his lead. But look, the Rams drafted Jared Goff first overall, all right, and signed him to a $1 million+ contract. And now on top of that, on top of giving away $100 million, you're now giving away 2 first-rounders and a third round. Think about when you look at it over the long run, how many resources did you expend to get Jared Goff, first of all, and now give him up? That was your first overall pick, for Christ's sake.
Right.
And I mean, it's not like he's a terrible quarterback. It's not, he was banged up. And I mean, he's not as electric as some of these. He's a very, average, middle-of-the-pack quarterback. But, if the way I see it is the amount of assets that you expended on one player to the point where you don't have the ability to draft a game-changing player like an Aaron Donald or a Jalen Ramsey in that first round. Because you don't get a guy like Aaron Donald in the second, third, or beyond that. Guys like this generational talents come in the first round. So it's, again, goes back to the point. Must win now. Again, Stafford is clearly the superior quarterback. No one is arguing that. But 0 playoff wins in his career. He's never won a playoff game.
Yeah.
So I have no doubt that the Rams can figure it out and rally behind Stafford, especially with that supporting cast, and, put themselves in a position to compete within the NFC in the playoffs. But how is he going to respond? Is he going to be ready for that? Because let's face it, he's been on teams his entire career.
You're not wrong.
They have not been good. They have not been good. He's been that only spark. But how does he respond when it's go time? How does he respond when all the pressure's on the line? And when you look at it now, flipping back to the Lions, who I think, in my opinion, won this trade, they have a plethora of picks now to work with, especially in these consecutive upcoming years, with pre-existing talent, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, you look at DeAndre Swift, rookie year, and we know this. We've watched him all the way since high school. I mean, playing against him at St. Joseph's Prep. You look at that, you combine that with Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones, TJ Hawkinson at tight end it's a very decent supporting cast for Stafford's successor to come in. So, all that being said, if you just look at it, I don't think the Rams, from an overall standpoint, made the best decision. Is it the best for them right now? Absolutely. Stafford's a gunslinger.
Yeah.
But I'm a long-term guy. And, having said that, Lions won the trade.
I love what you mentioned about long-term, because long-term, you said it yourself, the assets that the Lions have moving on from the future, the Lions could potentially be back in the playoffs in the next couple of years. But if I'm a Rams fan, if I'm the Rams organization, knowing what happened 3 years ago when you lose to the Patriots 10-3 in the Super Bowl, one of the lowest scores in a Super Bowl we have seen in its creation, in the entire lifetime of the Super Bowl.
That was a pathetic game.
It was a very pathetic game. You look at it and you're like, all right, we got to switch it up. The Rams, when you got to that point, when Sean McVay came into the league, it looked like the Rams were going to be one of the top teams in the NFC for years to come. And I'm not saying they aren't. But with Matthew Stafford under gun now or over Jared Goff, I see them potentially reaching the NFC Championship or even more. Now, their odds after this trade move to plus 1,100 for next year's Super Bowl winnings. Now, Stafford, I'm not saying he's a lock to be a Hall of Famer, but you have to put him in the conversation. He has not had a good team since 2014 when they went 11-5. If you're telling me 9-7 is a good team, I'm not going to argue with you, but 11-5 is when you can anything above 10 wins. I believe you are a good team. Lost in the wild card. You mentioned it. He has 0 playoff wins in his career. He's lost all 3. He's 0-3, all in the wild card. He hasn't had a true number 1 wide receiver target, a top 10 wide receiver since Calvin Johnson. He retired in 2016. You mentioned it. Matthew Stafford is the only good thing on that Lions team. And he has been for years. When he had Calvin Johnson, he had someone to throw to. He put up the numbers. But then, what about the defense? Did the defense give it back? Not really. But the Rams defense, they will help. Will the Rams win the Super Bowl within the next 2 to 3 years? Probably not. But does this help them as a team? Yes. And there's the question, but I can answer that question with, you still have John Wolford as your backup. He came in against the Seahawks, and it looked like he was a better commander than Jared Goff in his first ever career start in a playoff game against Seattle. So, did the Lions rob the Rams? Absolutely. But I still think the Rams win this trade.
First off, hold on the Matthew Stafford Hall of Famer conversation.
You gotta put him in a conversation.
Hold on now. Is he a very elite talent? Absolutely. Is he a gunslinging quarterback? Absolutely. And he has put up impressive statistics. Nobody is arguing that. Hall of Famer. Matthew Stafford, Hall of Famer?
If you're telling me Phillip Rivers can make it into the Hall of Fame, you gotta put Matthew Stafford.
Win a playoff game first.
Fair,
Oh my goodness. Come on now. But it's interesting. It really is.
It is.
And, do I see the Rams coming out of the NFC and competing for a Super Bowl in the next 2 to 3 seasons? Absolutely. It's so likely. It's very, very likely. But you
winning a Super Bowl.
But you still have to face most likely Patty Mahomes and the Chiefs when you get there. So I don't know. Nonetheless, this is going to be super, super interesting to see how this plays out for both of these organizations. I mean, you took a gamble here on both ends. Both ends are totally taking a gamble. But I certainly think the Rams bit off more than they can chew.
And it also throws into question, what does Detroit do with their number 7 pick in this year's NFL draft? Because originally a lot of mock drafts had Detroit choosing a quarterback because there was that relationship between Matthew Stafford and Detroit. It's time for Stafford to explore elsewhere. So the number 7 pick just got a lot of value to it. So do you keep it? Do you draft something that you need on defense? Or do you trade it for even more assets? So that's something to consider. But even more important to consider is, what does this mean for Deshaun Watson? Matthew Stafford costed a starting quarterback and 2 first-round picks, as well as a third-round pick, which we have learned has value to it. So what does this make Deshaun Watson worth?
Spike, you're telling me that Stafford, at the age of 32 years old, costs 2 first-rounders, a third-rounder, and a pre-existing, solidified, and pretty decent starting quarterback? Deshaun Watson is 25 years old and has 3 years remaining on his deal, and no one's going to argue this. He's in the peak prime years of his career.
Yeah.
And has proven to have this X factor about him. That's what separates the good from the great.
Agreed.
Is that undefined X factor. You either have it or you don't. Deshaun Watson has it. We've seen it since Clemson, since his tenure at Clemson. Something in him he's a special player.
Agreed.
And with so bright of a future. And look, if we're trying to debate how much this could cost a franchise for Deshaun Watson, I mean, this could be like a James Harden-esque trade.
Absolutely.
With the amount of pieces teams are going to have to give up in order to get this guy, I mean, how much is it going to be? 4 first rounders?
You don't know.
3 first rounders, 2 second rounders? I mean, is it going to be first rounders for the next 7 years? I mean,
you don't know.
At that point, is it even worth it? Is it even worth it to get? I mean, of course it's worth it because he's Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
He is Deshaun Watson. But God, man, for me, I just can't wrap my head around Stafford costing 2 firsts,
Agreed.
a third, and Jared Goff. I don't know. It blows me away.
You look at the teams that could potentially be on the phone with Houston trying to figure out what it might cost. Teams that come to my mind, the Jets, the Jaguars, the Washington football team, the Panthers, and the Broncos. Now, all of those 5 teams have a starting quarterback that honestly I would put in the conversation with Jared Goff. If I'm trading for a better quarterback, yeah, take my starter. Yeah. Fine. And then you also have, these teams, they're mediocre. They'll have a lottery pick. They can, those picks will be nice cost. But how many? There was a mock trade with the football team. They would get Deshaun Watson, and Texans would get 3 first-round picks and Chase Young, a future defensive player of the year, and 3 first-round picks. If I'm Washington, I'm not doing that trade. But then it's like, so what team is going to give up that much? And you said it best. This is going to be a Harden-esque trade. You are going to have to trade your own quarterback, potentially another playmaker on either side of the ball.
Absolutely.
And at least 3 first-round picks. At least.
It just comes down to the amount of assets. I mean, Deshaun Watson, yes. Is he a franchise quarterback? Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Is he, a guy that can lead you to the promised land? I think so.
Yes.
I certainly think so.
He did it with Clemson.
Yeah, exactly. Even with all the cards, that Alabama, how hyped up was that Alabama defense? Especially, nonetheless.
And Deshaun Watson runs down the field for the final drive and gets the game-winning touchdown. Exactly. He can do it.
Exactly. He has that it factor. But how much does that it factor cost?
Exactly.
And you mentioned it. Yes, it is a hypothetical trade, but that is essentially the
what you're gonna have
pieces
to
and the assets that you will have to give away for this kind of player. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the Jags, would you be willing to give up that number 1 overall pick this upcoming draft, which will, undoubtedly be Trevor Lawrence? Would you give that up for Deshaun? Absolutely.
No questions asked.
Absolutely. I mean, but that is, as you said earlier, that is pennies. That is pennies
on
you're
top
giving
of
away. But what else? What else?
That's the question.
3 more first rounders? 4 second rounders? Where's the threshold here?
Yeah.
I don't know. But
the Goff Stafford trade really put into proportion how much Watson is going to cost. And the question with those 5 teams I mentioned was, do those teams want to give away future assets, and do they believe Deshaun Watson can come in and work with what he has now? I look at the Jags, no. If I'm the Jags, keep the number 1 pick, keep your future first-round picks.
Absolutely.
Build with that.
They're in rebuild mode.
Exactly. If I'm the Jets, it's a question. Football team, question. Broncos might be the team.
I think they're the dark horse, no pun intended. But I think the Denver Broncos honestly have the ideal setup here for a guy like Deshaun Watson to come in and take their franchise by storm. Will it happen? I don't know. What are you gonna give up? I don't know. I really don't know. But man, Deshaun Watson, this Stafford Goff trade is the best thing that could have ever possibly happened for your bank account. I will tell you what. So who knows?
I'm looking at the Broncos and Panthers as the 2 teams that will most likely pull the trigger.
Absolutely, but who knows?
It's going to be a fat trade.
We both know the NFL is full of surprises, and you think something, and the man upstairs is staring down, laughing at you. Yep. Because that's just how the league is. And that's why we love it so much. Because who saw this trade coming?
No, I texted you. I called you. I was like, dude, you're not gonna believe this.
Exactly. I mean, I'm sitting there at the bar and I get a call from you, and it's like, It's one of those jaw-dropping blockbuster trades, and who knows? But I'm excited as hell to see where he lands, and I think wherever he goes, I mean, I would be ecstatic to have
absolutely
on under center for me, starting every Sunday. So we'll see.
It's going to be interesting because Deshaun Watson and his agent did make it clear on February 1st, Watson will sit out of OTAs this preseason if he's not out of Houston. So that would be interesting. And one fun little fact that we heard today, today's Tuesday, but EA Sports is officially bringing back NCAA football to next-gen consoles. Jace, this brings back childhood memories.
Oh, this is nostalgia right here at its finest. I mean, I think we can speak for every single sports fan growing up as a kid. I mean, this was my favorite sports video game of all time. And, you know, I was crushed as a kid to see it go. And just putting it into perspective for how long it's been, the last edition of the game featured Michigan's Denard Robinson on the cover in the year 2014. It's a long time coming, and I think, again, I can speak for everyone. We're excited as hell. I might have to buy a PS5 just for this game. I mean, wow, it's exciting, and you know, glad EA Sports finally pulled the trigger, man. It's long overdue.
Yeah, so fingers crossed. Release is hopefully going to be 2022 or 2023. Hopefully that's when athletes are getting paid. We'll see.
And that's a conversation and a controversy all in its own. I mean, that is 2 shows worth of content we could argue back and forth with on that. But, you know, fingers crossed. I hope I can be sitting on my ass playing NCAA football again.
I'm ready for it. Well, folks, that's going to do it for Do You Agree, the Sports Talk Show, Season 4, Episode 3. As always, I'm Collin Spike alongside my best friend, Jason Hoffman. Be safe. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we will talk to you on Friday with our Super Bowl preview podcast. Until then, we'll see you later.
Don't miss it. Stay safe, everybody.
Nothing like I've ever seen. It's just a thing of beauty.